Ourselves in today and take stock with Henry Newman, director at Open Europe, a think tank that calls for reform of the EU, and former advisor to one Michael Gove. Let's talk about Michael Gove first, if we may. Have you spoken to him in the last 24 hours?
I haven't spoken to him this morning, and I understand he's staying in government from the reports that we've all just seen and the clip that you just showed. And I think that's the right decision. I think it was a different question for the Brexit secretary himself, because clearly he'd put forward some specific red lines that I don't think this draft deal met. And also, as I understand it, changes were made to the text, which has been agreed with the EU, particularly on the political declaration, without his knowledge, and he was presented with those at the last minute. I think that put him in a very difficult position. But overall, the question is, how does the government come together and try and find a way through, and ultimately try to find a way that this deal can be sold in Parliament? I think that's now very difficult, given the reception it's got.
Let's come back to that in a second, but on Michael Gove, and you know him well, what do you think his calculations will have been in making this decision to stay in Cabinet? Obviously, people will know that he was prominent in the Leave campaign, yet, unlike others, he has decided to stay put.
Well, I think most Brexiteers want to see Brexit deliver. I think most people in the government want to see Brexit deliver. The question is, how can you do that, given the compromises necessary, both to get something agreed with the European Union and to deliver it through a very divided Parliament where the government has no majority of their own? They rely, of course, for their supplying confidence on the DUP, and the DUP are very unhappy with this deal, as we've seen yesterday. So I think this is a difficult moment for politics overall. And I've been trying to work through the detail of the deal and understand actually what's been agreed.
And we understand that Michael Gove didn't accept the job of Brexit Secretary, according to reports, because he wanted to renegotiate, work on that deal, and he felt he wouldn't be able to. Are you able to confirm from the conversations you've had with him that that was the case?
Well, I'll let Michael speak for himself about what has and hasn't been reported. But I think the main thing is that clearly there is a deal with the EU. I think that deal can be tweaked at this point, and there are certain things that it might be sensible to go back and try to shift. But overall, this is the broad framework of the deal that we're going to get at this point. I think changes could be made to it, and we're also seeing some noises from the EU side that they're not entirely happy with where things have ended up. We saw a French minister, for example, yesterday saying actually they've got quite a lot of concerns about what the UK is being given here. So I don't think this is completely perfect, particularly on the backstop for either side. And in some senses, that has an advantage, because neither of us want the backstop to last long term.
But for those people who are criticising Theresa May today and who've been criticising her over the last couple of days, were they not realists to begin with? Because, you know, was there ever going to be a perfect Brexit deal?
There was never going to be a perfect Brexit, no. But I think what the problem is that the Prime Minister has never been able to honestly explain the trade-offs and the compromises inherent in Brexit. So I think we saw her even on Wednesday in Prime Minister's question saying we're going to take back control of our trade policy. Now that's just not the case in the backstop. It may ultimately be true, but I think she needs to level with people more and explain actually, look, we're not getting all we want immediately, but actually this is quite a good deal in many respects.
But nor did the people who were campaigning for Leave in the referendum in the first instance. They didn't explain all of those points fully either, did they?
I think that was a bit different because that was a referendum campaign, so you had two sides, and the Remain side were obviously able to challenge everything the Leavers were saying, and the Leavers were able to challenge everything the Remainers were saying. And that we have that sort of dialectic, that dialogue in a political campaign. This is now different. This is about government. And we've had 2.5 years for the Prime Minister to explain actually that compromise is necessary. The country's split and the Remain split. Pretty much nobody's changed their mind overall. And Parliament is split. And we need to agree something not just within the Cabinet and within the government, but also that can actually work with Brussels.
OK, Henry Newman, Director of Open Europe, thank you very much for your time today.